So welcome to Campervan Habitude. This is actually episode 3 in this particular series of vlogs where we're converting a T6 van into a camper. If you have joined us before, welcome back. If you haven't joined us before, can I ask you just to maybe have a look at the previous episodes just so that you can get up to speed and see where we are. Now, for those who did join us before, you may recall that I had a rather significant parcel or two delivered to the driveway. The first one was a bundle of electrics, all the power components that I needed to convert my van into a camper that was set down by James from Rain Automotive. And the other one was a large box containing the units sent down from Evo Design. So things were really starting to get going and it was a very exciting period. So first of all, let's go and have a look at my kitchen table and just have a look at all the things that I got out of the box sent down from Rain Automotive. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking, what the hell is all that and where on earth does it go? Well, panic not. It's merely a couple of fuse boxes, a switch or two, some battery chargers and a bundle of cables. All of which, I should add, are labelled. So what could possibly go wrong? Now, here's a rather simple way of showing you all the items that were sent down from Rain Automotive, and it might make a bit of sense of what was on the kitchen table there. First of all, I had a leisure battery. I was informed that all I needed was something similar to a 95 amp hour battery to allow me to be off grid for a couple of days, using things similar to lights, the fridge, the pump for the sink, that sort of thing. However, we did need to be a little bit sensible with that. We had a C-Tech DC to DC battery charger, a 12 volt leisure battery charger, a DC to AC power inverter, a control panel to control the cabinet lights, the 12 volt TV socket, the extractor fan and the water pipe pump and the like. 4 spotlights with the dimmer switch, USB ports of various places around the van, a blade fuse box and a hookup cable with associated boxes. So that was pretty much all the electrics that I had. So let's have a quick look at how they were connected in the van. So my first task was to fit the hookup cable to the van. As you can see, I have the socket underneath the bonnet at the front of the vehicle. The one thing I certainly didn't want was a big ugly socket stuck on the side of my van and to drill a hole through the side of the vehicle. On my previous vehicle, I had a socket underneath the van at the rear, which was very easy to plug into, but when you're on rough ground, there was certainly a risk of damaging that socket, particularly if there were rocks sticking up and the like. So I opted to fit it inside the bonnet. So we took a cable from that hookup socket straight through the front of the cab, and we ran it to the rear of the van, a little bit further to be honest. That cable all the way down to the consumer unit. From the consumer unit we had a cable going to a small socket which was very similar to a 240 socket, the average socket that you see inside a house. The plug from that socket actually goes to the 12 volt leisure battery. And we'll explain why that is in a very short while. Another cable comes from the consumer unit. And let's actually go outside of the van really, just to make this a little bit clear. Clearly, that's not what we do. And that runs along the side of the vehicle to a small CBE 3-pin socket that is situated just above my worktop. Again, this is very similar to a 240 plug socket. That means that whenever the van is plugged in either at home or on the campsite, it provides power all the way down to the consumer unit. That consumer unit then will, at the very least, provide power to the socket, the CBE socket that is above the worktop. Now, back to the 12 volt leisure battery charger that the consumer unit also feeds. Once it provides power to that charger. That charger then provides power to the leisure battery. Thus, we're providing power when we're on hookup, which means that we can use other items inside the van, as that battery actually feeds the control panel and other areas of the van, which we'll speak about later. Now, you may have noticed that there were two battery chargers that I mentioned. I mentioned the 12 volt leisure battery charger, but I also mentioned the C-Tech, which is an absolute genius bit of kit. Now, the reason I've got a C-Tech is because I've got a smart alternator on my vehicle, being one of the newer T6s. So I'll explain how that works in a very rudimentary style. I've taken a live supply from my main van battery, and that has gone underneath the flooring yet again, and that runs all the way back to feed the C-Tech charger. Because I've got a smart alternator, I also need to take a live feed from my main fuse panel of the van, and that is just one cable that's come down, and that feeds into the C-Tech also. That ensures that the C-Tech is not charging or taking power from my main battery until the ignition is actually switched on. And that was a bit of a head scratcher. I actually had to speak to an auto electrician that I knew about that, and he gave me a little bit of advice, so that was fantastic. So that C-Tech battery charger now will provide power to the leisure battery. Oh, hello, I've got a message on my laptop. Nothing important. Will provide power to that leisure battery whenever the van is switched on or is being driven, that sort of thing. Now, I don't want to add too much confusion here, but that van, or rather that C-Tech charger, will also receive power from solar panels. There we go. Power from the sun. Now, I have running cables from this battery charger. They run along the roof lining and they terminate on my roof. I haven't fitted solar panels yet, but it means that I can future-proof the van and I can use them at a later date. So the C-Tech is now connected to the main battery on the van, which means that the leisure battery is going to be charged via the C-Tech whenever the van is running. We've also introduced cables from a solar panel, albeit they're not fitted at this stage, which means the leisure battery also has the potential to be charged from the sun too. So now we've got the leisure battery charged. So what's the leisure battery going to do for us? If I find my ruler, here we go, I shall show you. So we have live coming from the leisure battery, and that is going to be connected up to the inverter that I spoke about. Now this inverter actually stores power, builds it from the leisure battery, and I have another socket. Again, we're going to go outside the van here. There we go. And that's going to go. Oh, hello, Rafi. Rafi's coming to see me. He's poked his head around the door. He's gone again. That's going to another CBE socket that is just above the worktop there. That means that that inverter, which is storing all the power, can be used to charge batteries, to power laptops, all things that need a little bit extra charge than the battery, the leisure battery itself can provide. The live also comes from the leisure battery and feeds the blade fuse box, which I've just drawn in there. Now, from that blade fuse box, as the name would suggest, there's a number of fuses in there that protect the different things that are fitted in the van. Some come from the control panel, such as I've already mentioned, the pump for the sink, the 12 volt sockets for the TV, the extractor fan for the dog, and the USB ports too, which you can see around different areas of the van. The reason we've got these at the back is so that we can plug in lights as well as our phone when we're in bed, etc. We also have another one built into the control panel, actually, which is just at the side of the unit near the sink, and we have one near the B-pillar of the van. I shall show you a small table I've got there, and that's a very useful USB port, so that is absolutely brilliant too. Direct from the fuse box, we've also got things such as the fridge wired in directly with a larger fuse as well that's protecting the fridge. In addition, the control panel also controls the strip light, which is under the shelf above the worktop, and the strip light, which is under the overhead locker, which is at the rear of the van. You'll also notice, whilst using the blue pen, that I've got 4 spotlights placed in the ceiling of the van. They are connected to a CB dimmer, which is situated just above the worktop also. Next to the dimmer, I've also got a power gauge, I guess you'd call it, which tells me how much power I've got in the leisure battery, so that we're not surprised. So, very rudimentary, as I say, very naive sketch I've given you there, but hopefully that explains in layman's terms what I've got fitted in the van. Just in case you were wondering, yes, I did have to remove the glove box in order to drill through the bulkhead and into the engine bay. A word of warning here, there is very little space available to you in the engine bay of the T6. So I must say, check, check and check again just to see where you can drill. You'll see I used this drainage tube as a guide. It is visible from the other side of the engine bay, so it's a good indication. Don't, however, be tempted to run the cables through the same hole as the drain. It wasn't designed for it, sir. It simply isn't worth it. You may also notice that I fitted rubber grommets to the hole after I drilled them. This is just to protect the cables, really, stop them from rubbing. So here we go. You can see how tight it is in the engine bay, actually. So the cable, the red cable, comes through the back of the bulkhead there. That leads from the footwell of the passenger side. I secured the red cable with suitable cable ties as it's coming through there to keep it in place. And I've also fed it underneath that little plastic shield that's to the left of the leisure battery. You can just see the thicker red cable is the wire that I'm referring to, albeit I have taped the end of it up there just to ensure it doesn't come into contact with the terminals whilst I'm doing the electrics in the van. Now, I also have the blue cable needs to come through that bulkhead. It's not been fitted there, but that was a thicker cable, so thicker grommet required. That also came in the same place, so fed its way around and underneath that little plastic shield. And the socket was actually fitted on the plastic piece on the front of the van, but I shall try and remember to take a picture of that before I finish the video. Here we see the leisure battery fitted with the 12-volt fuse box and the hookup consumer unit. The 2 black cables curling around to the left are actually the solar panel cables that I ran in to assist with the fitting at a later date, just so they're all behind the panelling. Now, of course, lots had to be moved when the units were fitted, but you can see where I'm taking all the cables to there. That was just the early stages of the installation. Now I've changed position because Ruth has just joined me in the office. She's just brought me a cup of tea. But she doesn't want to be on camera, and she's not on camera, so she can stay where she is. Say hello, Ruth. There's
hello,
Ruth. Thank you. So yeah, sorry, I'm looking at my laptop, which is over there, and looking where we are. So there you can see all the electrics that we've got, and that very simple drawing that should explain things to you. As I say, if I can do it, you can do it, but have a look on the internet anyway. There's loads of advice on YouTube and the like. The next parcel we had was all the units from Evo Design. If I can tell you anything, in fact, I'll tell you 2 things. Get somebody to help you lift the box. It's bloody heavy. And also create an awful lot of space so that you can spread all your stuff out. In fact, I'll sneak in a 3rd one. Read the instructions. I don't usually, and it's one of the best things you could do, given the fact that these units are quite complicated. I've fitted many a kitchen, but these are far more complicated than kitchen units. Oh, right. So we got all the units made up there. You can see that Ruth helped me on day one, but she wasn't willing to stay around for day two, and that pretty much shows you how stressy it can be making up these units. But we got there in the end. The most eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed I had a little helper there as well. He was useless. We had to get rid of him in the end. He was on cheap labour anyway. The next move then, we had to take a drill to the van. Now, what's the reason for drilling even more holes in your van, I hear you scream? Well, let me tell you, I've travelled to France on a number of occasions. It gets hot over there, and the country seems to go on forever and ever at times. So I was mindful of the fact we're quite possibly going to be in this van, and poor old Rafi is going to be in the back for a number of hours. With the heat, he's going to struggle to breathe, so it's quite clear that we needed a dog fan. I managed to source one off the internet. I'm not entirely sure how effective it is, to be honest, but it's a type of van that takes the air out of the van, so I needed to drill a hole so that I could then start cutting a big hole in the top of the roof. So a series of holes were drilled here into the van before I used the jigsaw to cut a hole. I must say you'll see the blade of the jigsaw fall out, and a clever bit of editing will suggest that this only happened on one occasion before I decided to change my position in cutting the hole. That was not actually the case. Oh, great. Big come out straight away.
Dog fan hole.
Yeah, I think you'll need maybe enlarging, but certainly filing. Well, there we go, hole in roof. Gravity certainly was our friend in the end, because the jigsaw blades kept on falling out for some particular reason. The important thing with this was we made sure that Ruth held a piece of wood on the bottom of it, and I hammered the edges flat from above to make sure we get a good seal on it. And I've also touched up with the Acapulco blue paint that we've got, the primer and the blue paint, so that the edges are all sealed before the fan goes on. And the result is this fantastic looking item on top of my roof. I have to say the dog fan looks pretty good too. Now, before fitting this item onto the roof and the inner cowl, I actually made sure that the ceiling was insulated and carpeted directly onto the ceiling, and then I fitted the inner cowl onto that carpeted face just so that aesthetically it looked quite good. You'll also see that I carpeted a thin piece of plywood and added that to the ceiling as well, just as a little bit of a feature before the actual window boards were fitted. You can see the cables going to the unit there as well, so with the carpeting and that board you can't see the cables going towards that fan. Whilst I'm on the roof, I may as well show you, these are my solar panel cables that run along the ceiling void, and they have a small black cowl on the front as well. And this is the first sight of the lino that we fitted in the van. It's a bamboo design, so it goes well with the bamboo worktops that we've got. Anti-slip as well, and I think Rafi gave it the seal of approval, which is very important. The roof liner was covered with a fake grey suede material. I think I got this from Harrison Trim Supplies, which is a good company for coverings, lino and fixings as well for your panels in the van. You can see that the lights are also in place. Please ignore the temporary wooden block that we had there, its days were numbered. The surround around the window houses the blackout blinds. They came from Van Shades. I've got to say, they're certainly not cheap, and you'll notice that they sit lower than the worktop. Please note that this is a standard height unit for a T5 or a T6, so really I'd expect the window surround, which is also designed for a T5 or T6, I may add, to fit. I did ring Van Shades, but I was told that there'd be no returns because I'd fitted the item. Now I totally understand that. There is advice on their their site, their website apparently, that tells you that they may obstruct the units, but it isn't very clear. But also, as I say, they're designed for the job, so I wouldn't expect them to fail the units. I was advised when I spoke to Van Style that the best option would be for me to cut my solid bamboo worktop, which I didn't think was very sage advice. Silver lining to the cloud though, they do look great, and the blinds work perfectly well once they are fitted. I actually ended up running my trusty angle grinder along the top of the window surround just to take the top edge off so that I could shimmy it up and sit it on top of the worktop. Certainly no way I was cutting through that bamboo. The cut was nicely covered by the highline shelf that I had anyway. So it was out with the units. I sealed the top with a suitable sealant for the wood, and I fitted the control panel that you can see there. And then once that unit was in, we were very close to being able to use the van. So we did. We were minus a bed. We had no gas for the cooker, but it didn't stop us venturing out on a dog walk or two. Not exactly what we'd planned, but there's plenty of time to get over to Europe, and hopefully we'll get to the Tour de France next year. So we're pretty much at the end of the journey in converting this van into a camper. The next video I'll be showing you will be the exciting bit, because it'll show you everything that we've done. But please let me find a suitable place to do that, and a warm sunny day too. Thanks for watching so far. Please click subscribe so that you can see what we're doing, and click the little bell at the side of it as well, just so that you're notified of any other videos that are coming up so that you don't miss any. They aren't too regular when I'm doing it, so that might be of benefit. Give us a thumbs up if you can, and if you can share with others, that'd be brilliant too, because we'd love as many people as possible to see this. So it's goodbye from me, and Ruth.
Goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from Ruth. Catch you later.